Tonight we're going to be hiking along the Florida Trail, the Florida National Scenic Trail, in an area primarily in the area of the Tosohatchee Wildlife Management Area. Where is that, you may ask? Well, you can see the map. It's down just southeast of Orlando. So it's the suburbs of Orlando almost border this area now. There's a little town called Christmas, Florida. Maybe you've heard of. It's kind of famous when people go down there to try to get stamps. They're postmarked, their Christmas cards postmarked in that post office because they say Christmas on it. So it's just a little area. It's a very historical area as well. It's about 2 hours south of us in Jacksonville. Here's another map. This map is showing that area plotted on the map of the Florida National Scenic Trail. So I've given a lot of talks about it, and Bill has too, but for those who don't know, the Florida National Scenic Trail is one of 11 national scenic trails that are approved by Congress, and they're part of the Florida National Trails Act. Whoops, sorry. And that was designed to encourage and support those trails in the United States. So our Florida Trail was designated a National Scenic Trail in 1983. It's been in process since the late 60s when the first area of the trail was laid out around the Ocala National Forest. And now it stretches 1,100 miles end to end. So if you go from the Everglades down here in Big Cypress National Preserve and you go all the way to Pensacola, you're going to hike about 1,100 miles continuous footpath. And they also have options. So you could go the eastern route, or you could go the western route around Lake Okeechobee and also around the Ocala National Forest area and around Orlando. So if you add all those trails up, you get 1,400 miles of trails that the Florida Trail Association maintains. And then they also support some spur trails. One is up in the Panhandle that is called Blackwater Forest, and it goes up north of the Florida Trail up into Alabama, where it connects to some other national trails. And then there's this other trail down here near Lake Okeechobee that's called the Ocean to Lake Trail, and it goes basically from the Lake Okeechobee section of the Florida Trail east to the coast of Florida. So it's an extensive trail system. It's maintained all by volunteers, and there's an organization based out of Gainesville called the Florida Trail Association. If you're interested, you can go to floridatrail.org and check out all their programs, and they have a lot of guidance as to how to hike the trail. You can day hike or section hike, or you can be real daring and do a through hike all the way from beginning to end. And so anyway, we're hiking on the Florida Trail through this area, and this section that we're going to talk about tonight is around where that red square is. Here's a little more of a close-up map. Because actually the hike I'm going to describe tonight is in 2 WMAs, and a WMA is a wildlife management area, and they're managed and defined by the Florida Wildlife Commission. And Florida Wildlife Commission works with the recreational areas as well as hunting areas, as well as preserving nature in our protected lands and our private lands as well. Hold on 1 second here. Okay, so the first area that we're going to walk through is the Seminole Ranch Wildlife Management Area. So that's in the left-hand map here. And we're starting here at this Wheeler Road. And we're going to actually go through Orlando Wetlands Park, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So we're kind of going off trail through this park onto a side trail and then back down through the Florida Trail, which is this little kind of triangle map here, triangle line. And so then we'll keep going south on that. Once we've done our little round trip here, we'll go south. And at State Road 50, we enter into the Tosohatchee WMA, right about here. Let me put on a better highlighter here. So right about here, and then we follow this orange line here, which is the Florida National Scenic Trail. And then we're going to go continue throughout this area here. And this is another look at it. This is our actual route they're going to take. So as I mentioned, we start at this Wheeler Road Trailhead, which is near State Route 50 in Christmas, Florida. And this is the Orlando Wetlands Park. We're going to go through that, out the back entrance. Well, it's not an entrance, but over the back fence. And we're going to go on a side trail that leads to the Florida National Scenic Trail, which we pick up around here. And then we follow that red line down. And then I'm going to show you a place you could camp, which is Fish Hunt Camp. And then we can go down through the Tosohatchee, and I'll show you some areas where you could camp within the Tosohatchee. And then we're going to end up down here at Fish Hole Road down near State Route 528. So it's about probably, let's see, about 22 miles to do that whole route. So I've done it in a series of hikes. Yeah, it's probably about a good, easy 3-day hike or 2-night hike. So a little bit about the history of the area. As far as the geology and geography, it's bordered, let me just point that out a minute. It's bordered on the east by the St. Johns River. Okay, as you can see over here, this here is the St. Johns over here. Oop, not getting my highlighter, sorry. Let me move it back here. So here's your St. Johns River over here. As you can see, that borders the whole eastern side of this wildlife management area, and same over here with Seminole Ranch. Okay, and so this area over here that we're hiking through is in that floodplain. So you need to be aware, and you need to contact the WMAs, also your river management districts, and find out what the water levels are, because if they're at flood level, then this is all going to be underwater and probably not the time you'd want to hike it. So it's been an important area for, hundreds, thousands of years. Prehistoric people were here, the native people, and they were a shell mound culture. They lived off of the river. They lived off of the the coastline, because this is going near to the Atlantic coast as well. And so they built shell mounds, whether this is for just disposal of their waste, or if this was a ceremonial or some type of religious connotation, we're not really sure. When the Europeans arrived in this area in the 1500s, it was the Spanish that came over and settled our area. They found a tribe, a family of people called Timucua. Basically, that was their language, was Timucuan language, and they had some loose affiliation between their habitations, their tribes, their villages, and it was pretty much all up and down the northeast coast of Florida. And in the 1700s, William Bartram, who was a famous naturalist of this area and the whole southeast, he explored the St. Johns River and went upriver as far as this area here near the Tosohatchee. And then in the 1800s, there were a series of Indian wars as the United States took over the territory and it became a state. And in this area of Tosohatchee, there was a General Thomas Jessup who was negotiating with the local Indian tribes. At that time, they were then the Seminoles. And I won't go into the whole history of the Seminoles at this point, but in any case, the Seminoles were taking up residence here in Florida, and the United States was trying to clear territory and didn't want to have them around in the areas they wanted to be. So they were trying to make a negotiation, and they sent a delegation of Cherokee Indians who was allied with them to meet with the Seminoles and their leader, Micanopy. And they met in this area we're going to walk through today. And they called it, the Seminole word was Tosohatchee Creek. And that's, I guess, been eventually shortened to Tosohatchee is what we call the area today. And they were kind of stood up, and then they changed it to Taylor Creek, which is just south of there. We can also cross that on the Florida Trail as well, but that's a little south of this area. And so they tried unsuccessfully to convince the Seminoles to move. They wanted them to move to Oklahoma. So I don't know why they wouldn't want to just uproot their entire home and move to Oklahoma, but they didn't, and they weren't able to be convinced by General Jessup. And so then Micanopy came to Jessup's camp, and they wanted to negotiate further. They came under a white flag of truce, and they were just taken prisoner and forced to move. And so to this day, the Seminoles have never agreed to any treaty with the United States. The only tribe that I'm aware of who has not. So we're also walking through Orlando Wetlands Park. I want to talk a little bit about that. It's a very interesting project here. It's an artificial wetlands, and it was created to treat the wastewater coming from Orlando. And it's a good demonstration of how wetlands actually help reduce pollution in our watersheds. But this was one that's actually created by people in order to assist with that treatment. So it's got a capacity of 35 million gallons a day. It's processing reclaimed water that's already gone through some purification process at a water plant. And it comes through from this treatment plant through a 4-foot diameter pipeline, approximately 17 miles away, and then it gets funneled into this wetlands area. And so there are 17 different cells of pools of water and 3 distinct wetland communities, and they were all created and planted and tried to recreate what would be a natural wetland to remove whatever residual amounts of nutrients, such as nitrogen and phosphorus, are still in the water from that reclaimed water. They planted 2.3 million aquatic plants and 200,000 trees in this area. The water takes 40 days to journey through this system, and it's become this incredible wildlife habitat. If you want to see birds, this is the one place outside of Paynes Prairie and Gainesville, and there's another area over in Gainesville. That's actually a very similar type of artificial park. But outside of that, I couldn't tell you a better place to see birds, to see these wading birds and waterfowl. And I'll show you some pictures as we go along. But it's amazing. It's very reliable. You'll always see tons of birds there. So the system has been really successful, and it's removed about 64% of total nitrogen and about 74% of total phosphorus, which is what contributes to some of our blue-green algae problem that we have further south, out of the Lake Okeechobee watershed. So that's Orlando Wetlands Park. Here's what it looks like. Here's a park map. We're going to enter in at this entrance here. We're going to park out here in the Seminole Ranch Wheeler parking lot. And then we're just going to go through the park here on this road here, through the different lakes that were created. And then we're just going to go out the back entrance. And I'll explain that a little bit more later. So it's a really nice way to start your hike, is you're going to see tons of wildlife. A little bit about planning the hike. It's important to think about these things when you're hiking anywhere in Florida, particularly on the Florida National Scenic Trail. You need to check with your wildlife management areas. So in this case, call up Seminole Ranch, go to their website, the Tosohatchee as well, and check on the hunting seasons. Particularly in Tosohatchee, the hunting season could be a little rough. I mean, because they have some seasons where they hike with dogs, and they're quite a lot of dogs out there. So they'll give you advice as to whether it's a good time to hike through there or not. And just call them up. They're really helpful, particularly Tosohatchee. She's really nice there. She can give you all kinds of guidance. And you want to just get a camping permit from them if you're going to be hiking, if you're going to be camping in Tosohatchee. There's a lot of designated campsites in there, and some of them are on your Florida Trail map. Some of them are off the Florida Trail map, so you can get a trail map from Tosohatchee WMA office, and they'll show you all the different places you can camp, and I'll be talking about that as we walk you through this hike. Also, same thing with Seminole Ranch. Just let them know that you're going to be parking at Wheeler Road. There's no fees for any of this, but just good to let them know if you're going to leave the car for a couple days there while you hike. Another thing to be prepared for is this is a wet area. Like I mentioned, it's a floodplain of the St. Johns River. The really wet season, as we all know in Florida, is the summer. And I wouldn't want to be out hiking in the summer. That's just me. I hike during the winter from December through March, early March. So it's a little drier then, but we have wet winters and we have dry winters. So even in a normal time when it's not quote unquote flooded, you'll definitely have some areas here where you're going to be walking through water. So just to be prepared for that. We've got cypress swamps in there. There's hydric pine flatwoods, meaning basically wet a lot of the time of the year, even though they're pine. And as I mentioned, it's within the St. Johns River floodplain. So there's that seasonal flooding that you have to be aware of and just call ahead to make sure that it's not in flood stage. So here's the Orlando Wetlands Park. So as you walk in, you'll see these three big lakes, and you can walk through on a levee between those lakes. And as you can see, the bird life is just unbelievable. Here's a roseate spoonbill. Here's some egrets and spoonbills. They've got this big cypress swamp here with the big old cypress trees, more roseate spoonbills. It's just a beautiful place to walk through. I mean, just tons of birds and tons of wildlife. And then, as I mentioned, you'd be walking out the back area. You kind of come all the way back. Let me show you that map again. 1 second here. So you got to go out up this road here. That's what I was just showing you in the picture. And then you're going to kind of turn left right at the back of the Wetlands Park. You're going to see like a water monitoring equipment here, a little station. And right there, there's a kind of a little metal bridge that goes across a drainage ditch here. And then you'll see a fence. And you walk along that fence line, take a right, walk along that fence line till you come to a stile. And the stile is just a series of steps, wooden steps that can take you up over that barbed wire fence. It's cross that stile, and then you'll be on a side trail that leads you up to the Florida Trail. So all trails that are marked with what are called blazes. Maybe hopefully you can see that. There's a white rectangle, vertical rectangle on that palm tree there, and that is what's called a blaze. You can see that's a white one. If you look at the one on the left, this picture on the left, that one has an orange blaze. So the Florida National Scenic Trail is blazed orange, and this side trail is blazed with a white blaze. And most of these Seminole Ranch trails, and also some of the side trails down in Tosohatchee, are blazed white. So, in this case, I want you to be on the white blaze. Eventually, you'll hook up with this orange blazed Florida Trail, and then we're going to go around through that Seminole Ranch, and then towards the southern end of that Seminole Ranch route, there is a campsite. It's right on what's called Fishhawk Pond. So you have a water source here where you can filter your water. And there's a nice area with a shelter and a picnic table and a place where you can pitch your tents. It's just north of State Road 50. South of State Road 50, you'll just walk about 3/4 of a mile on St. Nicholas Road through a little neighborhood, and then you'll be back into the forest again, and you'll be going through the gate, the north gate of the Tosohatchee Wildlife Management Area. And at that point, you're in this fairly dry mesa pine flatwoods here, just some really gorgeous pine forest coming into Tosohatchee. Soon you go to a little bit lower elevation, you begin to go into more of a swampy area. And then you approach this Tosohatchee Creek, and then you can cross that creek on a bridge. And it's a really cool area, very low land area. Just before that, just after that creek, there is a camping area that you can go to. That's part of the Tosohatchee. So that's a hoot owl camp. And then just after that, there's a turnoff onto a road that'll take you down to the youth camp. So those are two options you have for camping that are managed by the Tosohatchee Wildlife Management Area. And so you need to talk to them about that if you want to camp there. We just did some random camping on this hike that I did, and you just could keep continuing on that route through Tosohatchee, and you're into a very dense pine forest, and there's a lot of camping areas there. It's really a pretty good place to camp, again, as long as the water level's right. Oh, let me go back and show you my friend here. So we met up with a little turtle, as you can see, and that's a Florida box turtle, and he was enjoying the rather damp habitat there in the forest. And it's a floodplain forest, so it's flooded a lot of the year. And you can actually see, if you can see on the right, you see how those trees have a water line, and it's not just a high water line. That's pretty much the flood stage, which will stay for days or weeks during the summer. And then you're going to come and go along Power Line Road. There's a big power line through here. You cross the road, then you cross the ditch on this beautiful footbridge here. And after that, or along here, off and on, you go through these really gorgeous palm forests, palm hammocks. And as far as you can see, there's palm trees. It's really, really pretty. And then after that, you're back into an open pine flatwood again for several miles. And then you're down towards that south gate. And there's a road along that's the fence line going towards the south gate. That road is always flooded. If you go that far, you're gonna be walking through ankle deep water, guaranteed. And another little friend we saw along the way. And that's about it for my presentation tonight.